Mrs. President, dear friends, it is a great pleasure to welcome you again in our house, Mrs. Rajavi. And as Jim has just said, it's also a great pleasure to warmly welcome our American guests, Governor Howard Dean, Senator Torricelli, and Congressman Patrick Kennedy, and of course our good friend John Bruton, Prime Minister of Ireland. Last week, the so-called Supreme Leader of Iran said that his regime would continue with its nuclear weapons project, intensify its presence and influence in Iraq, and work for the rule of Islamic parties in the region. He also emphasized, it's not the first time they say it, that Israel should be destroyed. He also instructed his internal political opponents not to protest if they are not elected in March elections, and not to, and I quote, help the enemy, but to submit to and obey the will of the Guardians' Council. So we can imagine what kind of elections can be held in a dictatorship of this sort. Khomeini's speech and the developments of the past months clearly prove or demonstrate four realities. First, the Iranian regime has no intention to abide by international laws and will not give up its oppression, terrorism, and nuclear program. The second reality is that the regime relies mainly on our weak policies, on the weak policies of the West. Third, the only solution to get rid of the nightmare of this fundamentalist totalitarianism that soon could be armed with nuclear weapons, the only solution to get rid of it is to bring democratic change to Iran. And fourth, this regime is paradoxically weak, vulnerable, and plagued by internal and external crises. A change of regime is needed. If the West were to deprive the regime of its assistance, and it would instead lend its support clearly to the democratic opposition, this change could be possible. These four realities, or these four principles, must be our guide in our relations with Iran. But regrettably, our governments overlook them for economic interest, short-term policy considerations, or some other reasons that sometimes are not transparent. Therefore, they have consistently failed in their policies towards Iran. The West's weak policy towards Ashraf also emanates from this same problem. Ashraf residents are a tool to achieve a democratic Iran, in a region free from insecurity, unrest, and fundamentalism. Therefore, protection of Ashraf residents is not just a humanitarian cause, which is indeed, but a key issue to peace in the Middle East and throughout the world. We have discussed